Yo, what is going on, everyone? It is Wraith here, back with another video, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about how you can start killing sweaty players or better players in Fortnite, because nowadays in Fortnite, literally almost every single person you come across cranking 90s, cranking some crazy high ground retakes, doing crazy edits, like, are somewhat good at the game. So for players who are maybe a little bit worse, or because they don't spend as much time playing the game and they just want to hop on and do a little bit better, or even if you're playing a tournament and you're always coming across sweaty players, in today's video I'm going to be talking about how you can kill those sweaty players and those tryhard players. So if you're looking forward to this video, make sure you slap a like button on it, hit that subscribe button, and let's get right into it. So for the first tip today, and this is a very, very important one, is you always got to be trying to get damage off first, and you're the one engaging in the fight. So what I mean about this is basically when you watch like 20 bomb gameplays or pro players W key or something like that, the reason they can get the kills so quickly and get those 20 bombs and just run through people is because they're 85 to 90% of the time, and almost every single fight, they're the one engaging in the fight. So basically what I mean about that is they get to dictate the fight, because when you shoot first and you deal damage first, if you deal 100 damage to the opponent, they're basically, for majority of players, unless they're super confident, they're going to try and box up and heal. And then that way, all you have to do is just keep spraying your AR, keep spraying your SMG, keep applying pressure to them until eventually you take a wall or get even more damage on them, and then it's just a free kill because you're at 200 HP and they're at 60 or 70 or even 100 HP, and it just pushes the favor to you a lot more. Even if it's a really good player, even if it's a pro player, if you deal the 100 to 120 damage, it just pushes the favor so much more in your way, because they're going to be focused on healing. Well, you can really focus on W keying and applying pressure and not letting them heal, and then that way you can pick up an easy kill. So now, obviously not every single fight you'll be able to damage first and engage in the fight, but for example, if you see someone in the, like, if you land lazy and you see someone on the opposite side, always be aware that they're there and try your best to make sure they don't shoot you first. If you guys are going to fight, make sure you always try your best to deal damage first, because like I said, they're always going to be focused on healing, and then you can just continuously apply pressure, and it doesn't matter how good they are if they're always healing. Eventually you're going to catch them off guard, and eventually you're going to either take their wall or jump in their box and do a big shot to them. So try your best to always engage, dictate the fight, and get damage off first. So now this next tip is very similar to the first tip, but it kind of goes in the same, like the opposite direction. So what I mean about this is stop running or always trying to hide or forcing the heal in fight. So now this is basically the opposite spectrum of the first tip, but if you're the one who gets damaged first, or even if you're like mid-fight and you guys are both at 200 HP, and you feel like the opponent you're fighting is just way better than you and you're just getting outclassed, outbuilt, out-edited, everything, so many players I see just try and run and disengage in the fight, or they'll try and hide behind a wall or something like that, or they'll just try and force the heal off, like I was saying, like if they're not heal off, but like try and get their heals back up. Like if they're at 110 HP or 130 HP, they're just forcing that big pot, and no matter, even if their opponent's applying pressure, they're still trying to force the big pot. And unfortunately, in majority of the time, that doesn't work. That's just going to make the opponent more likely to chase you down. Like, because for example, if he bills you and you're at 110 HP and you're trying to run away from the fight, I can guarantee you majority of the time, that person's either going to beam you in the back or chase after you and just keep applying pressure until you die. Especially in this Fortnite meta, everyone's so W key oriented that they're going to try and kill you no matter what. And then the same thing goes with if you're trying to pop a big pot, like I said in the last tip. If you're just consistently trying to pop a big pot and heal, they're just going to consistently W key you and push into your box and free kill you, right? So even if the player's a little bit better than you, if you have time, pop the big pot. If you don't, maybe try and make an edit on them and deal damage to them, because that way if you guys are both hit for 120, it evens the fight a little bit more. They might go off to heal, so then you can heal a little bit more, right? If you're just trying to slam that big pot the entire time while they're taking your walls, eventually, like I said in the first tip, they're going to take your wall and kill you. So even if they're a better player, sometimes you got to go for it and kind of make a play, which I'll talk about later. But if you're just running away or trying to get that like secret shot, like by hiding behind a wall or something like that, there's a high likelihood they're ready for it and they're just going to kill you, right? So instead of playing a little bit nervous, literally just play like you're better than them. Instead of being like, these kids are way better, I need to run, or I need to heal because I'm going to get killed if I edit on this kid. Don't think like that. Think you're better than them and then edit on them, or don't run away. Just keep fighting. If you die, you die, but just go for it. So now my next tip, and this might be a little bit of an obvious one, but it's improving your 1v1s. Now, I know this is like, you're obviously like, well, yeah, obviously I need to improve to get better, to be better players. Like, yeah, obviously. But basically what I mean about this is majority, I would say like 60 to 80% of fights are 1v1 case scenarios where you either box fight or build fights. Now, obviously there's third parties, there's endgame rotations, there's like a bunch of different fights, but for majority of them, it's going to be a 1v1 against your opponent. And like 95% of the time, these 1v1s end up in a box fight or a build fight, and then you try and box your opponent, or you try and shoot your opponent when he's building up, or whatever the case is, right? So basically, the best way to start beating these players who are just absolutely nutty mechanically and have crazy edits is just practicing your 1v1 box fight and build fights, because that's going to take up majority of your fighting. So even you don't have to be as good as Clicks, you don't have to be as good as Benji Fishy box fighting, but if you're like decent at box fighting, it's going to narrow that gap a lot more when you're fighting good players. Like, for example, an average box fighter has a way better chance of hitting a high damage shot box fighting Benji Fishy than a really terrible player fighting an average player. So basically what I mean about that is the gap between the best player and an average player is a lot less than a very bad player and an average player, if that makes sense. So basically what I mean is, if you can just become a little bit better in your box fighting and your build fighting ability, it's a lot easier to beat really good players, because even like if you know the basics of box fighting and build fighting, then you have a higher chance of dealing a high damage shot, or boxing your opponent, or killing your opponent, just because you're somewhat decent. I'm not saying, like I said, you need to become the best box fighter or build fighter in the world, but it'll definitely help if you're above average. Like I said, you don't need to grind it, but just becoming above average is going to allow you to beat a lot better players. Like, the amount of times where I'll be box fighting someone in game and they're way better than me mechanically, and they're just like, I can tell, I'm just like, okay, they're clearly outbuilding me, I'm just gonna box up. And just because I'm decent at box fighting, they might be a little bit better at box fighting, but anything goes, right? Like, you can get a heavy shot and you can beat Benji Fishy in a box fight just because you get a good shot, good edit, and he wasn't ready for it, or he misses his shot, right? So that there's been dozens, even hundreds of times where I've beat way better players than myself just because I'm above average at box fighting and I made a good edit and dealt a lot of damage on them. Now my next tip, and this is the one I said I would talk about a little bit later, is if you're like really struggling and you know that your opponent is just trying to flex on you and like he's making tons of edits, he's just building crazy, and you're like, okay, this guy's clearly way better than me or whatever, something you can do is literally just like wait for them. Like, literally just wait for them with your shotgun out, or just waiting for them. Like, something I do, especially in creative, like whenever I'm playing creative and you just see like those tryhard Clicks box fighters, or guys in realistics who just crank so hard and try and make 12 dozen edits play to throw you on their YouTube montage or whatever like that, right? Same thing happens in normal game. But if someone's like really trying to go OP on you, literally all I do is just wait with my shotgun on. I'm like, okay, this is super boring, so I just box up, throw a cone in my box so like they can't ramp edit on me, or sometimes I won't even, I'll bait them and let them throw a ramp in me, and then when they Mongo Classic, I'm literally just holding my pump shotgun out right at their head, and then the second they edit that ramp, I'm just shooting them for 190 damage or 160 damage, right? Sometimes like I don't even bother building, I don't even bother editing. If I know that they're just gonna, they out mechanic me and they outplay me, I'm just gonna be like, okay, whatever. I have good enough aim where if they make an edit on me or whatever the case is, you can literally just get a free shot. And the reason for that is so many players nowadays are just so predictable. Like, there's very few players who, when you fight, are making edits and plays that you like can't even comprehend, and you're just like, oh my god, I didn't even see that coming, right? Very few times has that happened, for me at least. So many players, if you actually, if you're not focused on editing, you're not focused on building, you're just watching your opponent play, you can pick up on so many things. Like, it's so obvious that 80%, I would say 90% of the time when I'm fighting people in creative or in game and I'm in my box, they're going to try like 3 things. They're basically, if I have a cone in my box, they're just going to take the wall, do a peanut butter edit, and they're going to shoot me, or they're going to do a peanut butter edit, re-edit it, and then so hopefully I shoot the wall, and then they're going to shoot me. Those are like the 2 main things. If I don't have a cone in the box, they're going to throw a ramp in, cut the ramp in half, and shoot me, or they're going to throw a cone in and shoot me. One of those 4 things is like majority of players. So literally, if you know how to counter those 4 and you just wait with your shotgun out, if he throws a ramp in and cuts a ramp in, you shoot your pump the second he edits it. If you have a cone and he takes a wall, you shoot your pump and then just pull out the build piece. Like, it's not very hard to predict a lot of opponents, and that just comes with playing. The more you play, the more you'll be able to predict your opponents and see what they're going to do, and then guess, and then that way you can beat way better players than you by literally just holding your shotgun out. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you slap a like button on it, hit that subscribe button, use creator code WraithFN in the item shop, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.